They called her cursed. For 18 years, Mira Ashford lived in the shadows of the Bloodstone Pack, a fragile girl with haunted eyes and trembling hands. She was the Omega, who couldn't shift, the broken thing whispered about in dark corners. They said her wolf was dead. They said she was punishment from the moon goddess herself, but they were wrong. What lived inside Mira wasn't dead. It was ancient. It was caged. And the night Alpha Darius Blackthorn rejected her in front of the 5 courts, he didn't just shatter her heart. He shattered the chains that had kept a goddess locked away for nearly 2 decades. Get ready. Because when the Ancient One awakens, kingdoms don't just kneel, they burn. The scent of lye soap and mildew clung to Mira's skin like a second layer. Her fingers, red and cracked from years of harsh chemicals, scrubbed at a bloodstain on Alpha Darius's training tunic. The underground laundry room of the Bloodstone Pack house had no windows, just a single flickering bulb that made shadows dance on the concrete walls. She was 18 today. Not that anyone remembered. Not that anyone cared. The heavy door slammed open. 3 figures descended the stairs, their designer boots clicking against stone. Mira didn't need to look up to know who they were. She could smell the expensive perfume and the cruel anticipation. Well, Cassia Moreno's voice dripped with venom. The ghost is still haunting our basement. Cassia was the Pack's head enforcer's daughter, stunning with raven black hair and amber eyes that currently gleamed with malice. Behind her stood her usual shadows, Trina and Vex, both giggling at their queen bee's wit. Mira kept scrubbing. Silence was safer. "I'm talking to you, freak!" A manicured hand shot out, knocking the basin of soapy water across the floor. Gray liquid flooded the stones Mira had just cleaned for the 3rd time that day. "I'll clean it," Mira whispered, her voice barely audible. "Louder," Cassia demanded, crouching down to Mira's level. "I want to hear that pathetic little mouse squeak. I said I'll clean it." Crack. The slap echoed in the concrete chamber. Mira's head snapped sideways, her cheek exploding in pain. She tasted copper. "That's Beta Cassia to you," Cassia hissed. "My father just got promoted. Which means I'm second in command after the Alpha finds his mate tonight." She grabbed Mira's chin, forcing eye contact. "And when Alpha Darius chooses me at the lunar eclipse ball, the first thing I'm doing is throwing your cursed ass out to the rogue lands where you belong." Mira's violet eyes, her only striking feature, met Cassia's amber ones. For just a second, something flickered in those violet depths, something that made Cassia's wolf whimper and pull back. Then it was gone. "Clean this up," Cassia released her, standing and smoothing her designer dress. "And if I see your disease-riddled face anywhere near the ballroom tonight, I'll have the guards chain you in the kennels with the actual dogs. At least they have wolves." The 3 girls laughed as they ascended the stairs, leaving Mira alone with the spilled water and the taste of blood in her mouth. She didn't cry. She had learned years ago that tears only made them hit harder. Hours later, after re-cleaning the laundry room floor twice and scrubbing every dish from the pre-ball dinner, Mira retreated to her room. It wasn't a room. It was a storage closet on the 4th floor that someone had shoved a cot into. One bare bulb, no heat, a single porthole window that looked out over the forest. Mira peeled off her soaked uniform, her fingers catching on a scar across her ribs. She had gotten it 3 years ago when Cassia's friends had accidentally pushed her down the stairs during a delivery. The Pack doctor had refused to see her. "Waste of resources on a dud," he'd said. She pulled on the only other item of clothing she owned, a faded gray dress she'd found in a donation bin. It was too big, the fabric thin and worn, but it was clean. Tonight was the lunar eclipse ball, the most sacred event in werewolf society, where fated mates were revealed under the eclipse's power. Every unmated wolf over 18 was required to attend, even her. Mira knew she shouldn't go. She had no wolf, which meant she couldn't have a mate. The pull, the bond, it required 2 wolves to recognize each other. She was basically human. But something in her chest ached tonight. A restlessness she couldn't explain. A heat that felt like fever, but burned deeper, in her bones. She made her way through the servant corridors, the hidden passages between the walls that the cleaning staff used. She'd mapped every inch of this pack house over the years. She knew where to step to avoid creaky boards, which vents had the best views. The ballroom was directly below. She could hear the music already, the classical strings that made her chest tighten with longing. Mira found her usual spot, a ventilation grate high in the shadows of the cathedral ceiling. From here, she could see everything. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers dripped light, like frozen waterfalls. Hundreds of wolves in formal wear danced and mingled, their combined scents creating an intoxicating perfume of power and pheromones. And there, on the raised dais, sat Alpha Darius Blackthorn. He was beautiful in the way that apex predators were beautiful, all sharp angles and lethal grace. Dark hair, ice blue eyes, a jawline that could cut glass. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than Mira would earn in her entire life. He looked bored. Cassia stood beside his throne, draped in a blood-red gown that left little to the imagination, whispering something in his ear that made him smirk. Mira's chest constricted, not with jealousy, with something else, something that felt like recognition. No, it couldn't be. As if he heard her thoughts, Darius's head snapped up. His ice-blue eyes scanned the ceiling, searching the shadows. His nostrils flared. "Do you smell that?" he murmured, loud enough that Mira's enhanced hearing caught it. Cassia frowned. "Smell what?" "Rain." And Darius stood abruptly, his glass of whiskey forgotten. "Wildflowers, like a meadow after a storm." Mira's heart stopped. That was impossible. She didn't have a scent. Wolves without wolves didn't produce pheromones. She had been tested a dozen times. Darius's eyes locked onto the ventilation grate, onto her. Even through the darkness and the distance, their gazes met. Slam. A pain like white-hot iron pierced Mira's chest. She gasped, clutching the metal grate as her vision swam. It felt like her ribs were cracking open, like something was trying to claw its way out of her sternum. Below, Darius staggered, his hand flying to his heart. His face went pale. "No," he whispered. Then louder with growing horror. "No, no, no, no." "Darius?" Cassia reached for him. He shoved her away so hard she stumbled. "Find her," he roared. "Find the source of that scent now." Guards exploded into motion. Mira tried to crawl backward, but the pain paralyzed her. She heard boots pounding through the servant corridors, orders being shouted. They dragged her out through the ventilation shaft, like a rat from a trap. Two burly enforcers, neither bothering to be gentle, hauled her through the kitchen and into the ballroom. The music died instantly. Mira was thrown to the polished marble floor at the foot of the dais. Her gray dress tore at the knee. She looked up, and 500 pairs of eyes stared back at her. Disgust, shock, confusion, contempt. "Is this a joke?" Cassia's voice cut through the silence, shrill and desperate. "This is the cursed girl, the broken Omega from the basement. She doesn't even have a wolf." Darius descended the steps slowly. Each footfall echoed like a death knell. He stopped inches from Mira, looking down at her kneeling form. Up close, he was even more terrifying. Power radiated from him like heat from a forge. "Look at me," he commanded. Mira raised her eyes. Violet met ice blue. The bond snapped into place like a rubber band stretched to breaking. Mate. Mine. Protect. Claim. The words weren't spoken, they were felt. A biological imperative that made Mira's body scream to close the distance between them. Darius felt it too. She could see it in the way his pupils dilated, the way his breathing became shallow. But where Mira felt desperate hope, Darius's face showed only revulsion. He spat the word like poison. "The moon goddess paired me with you?" The crowd murmured. Some laughed nervously. "Alpha, surely there's been a mistake," someone called out. "She's defective. Everyone knows she's cursed." Darius's jaw clenched. Mira could see the war happening behind his eyes. Duty versus pride. Fate versus reputation. Pride won. Stand up, he ordered. Mira stood on shaking legs. Tell them your name. Mira Ashford. And tell them what you are. Mira's voice broke. I'm an Omega. I'm broken. I don't have a wolf. The crowd's disgust was palpable now. Wolves without wolves were aberrations, genetic dead ends that occasionally appeared in weak bloodlines. Darius turned to address his court, his back to Mira. The Blackthorn lineage is the oldest and most powerful in the 5 courts. My ancestors ruled these territories when the moon goddess first blessed our kind. He turned back to her, his ice-blue eyes colder than Arctic tundra. I will not sully that legacy with a defect. Darius, please, Mira whispered. The bond was tearing at her insides, begging her to submit, to make him understand. I, Alpha Darius Blackthorn of the Bloodstone Pack. His voice boomed through the hall, formal and final. Reject you, Mira Ashford, as my mate and Luna. The pain was instant and catastrophic. Mira screamed. It felt like her soul was being ripped in half, like every nerve ending was being set on fire. She collapsed, her body convulsing on the cold marble. I accept. She gasped out the ritual words that would complete the severance. Even dying, even broken, she tried to spare him the madness of a one-sided broken bond. The pain didn't stop. It changed, shifting from heartbreak to something else, something deeper. Get her out of here, Darius commanded, already turning back to Cassia, to his court, to his life. Throw her beyond our borders. She is banished. I won't have a rejected mate, reminding everyone of this humiliation. No. Mira tried to stand, but her legs wouldn't work. It's winter. The rogues will. You should have thought of that before you were born cursed, Cassia said sweetly, nodding to the guards. Remove this trash. They dragged Mira toward the massive oak doors. She didn't fight. What was the point? But as they reached the threshold, Mira felt something shift inside her chest. The pain was morphing. The burning wasn't from heartbreak anymore. It was from something waking up. They dare. The voice in her head was not her own. It was ancient, furious, and powerful enough to shake the foundations of the world. The guards threw Mira into the snow like garbage. The heavy oak doors slammed shut, muffling the music that had already resumed inside. She lay there, her gray dress soaking through, ice crystals forming on her eyelashes. The logical part of her brain knew she should feel the cold, should be freezing to death, but she was burning. Her skin felt too tight, like a cocoon she was growing out of. Her bones ached, but not with cold. They ached with pressure, as if something inside her was expanding, demanding space. What's happening to me? Mira gasped. They broke the seal. There it was again. That voice. It didn't sound like madness. It sounded like truth. Who are you? I am you. I have always been you. They caged me before you could remember. Fed you poison to keep me asleep. But the rejection, the pain, it burned away the last of the chains. Mira's back arched violently. A scream tore from her throat, but it didn't sound human. It sounded like a howl. Inside the ballroom, the music faltered. Glasses stopped mid-air. What was that? Someone whispered. Crack. Mira's spine elongated, vertebrae popping like firecrackers. Her scream became a roar. That came from outside, Darius said, his head turning toward the doors. Crash. Mira's dress shredded as her body exploded outward. But this was no normal first shift. Most wolves transformed into animals roughly the size of large dogs, maybe a small pony for particularly strong alphas. Mira kept growing. And growing. When she finally stood on 4 legs, she was massive, easily 8 feet tall at the shoulder, larger than any alpha wolf in recorded history. Her fur wasn't the gray or brown or black of normal wolves. It was pure white, so bright it seemed to glow in the moonlight. But it wasn't just white. When she moved, patterns rippled through her coat, ancient symbols that predated language itself. Her eyes opened. They were no longer violet. They were pure gold, glowing like molten suns. Inside the ballroom, every wolf suddenly stopped moving. A pressure descended on the room, an aura of power so intense that the Omega servers dropped to their knees involuntarily. "What is that?" Cassia gasped, clutching Darius's arm. Darius's face had gone white. "That's not possible." Boom. Something massive hit the oak doors from outside. The reinforced wood, designed to withstand a siege, shuddered. Boom. Cracks spiderwebbed across the surface. Boom. The doors exploded inward in a shower of splinters and twisted metal. Screams erupted from the crowd as they scrambled backward. Through the debris, the ancient wolf stepped into the ballroom. She was magnificent and terrifying. Her head nearly brushed the 20-foot ceiling. Her paws left scorch marks on the marble floor. Power radiated from her like visible waves of heat, and she was looking directly at Darius. The pressure intensified. All around the room, wolves began to drop. First, the Omegas, then the Betas, then even the visiting Alphas from the other courts. Their instincts were screaming a single word: submit. Only Darius remained standing, and even he was shaking, his knees threatening to buckle under the weight of her dominance. The ancient wolf opened her jaws and released a sound that wasn't quite a howl and wasn't quite a roar. It was the sound of mountains crumbling, of forests burning, of the world ending and being reborn. Every window in the ballroom shattered simultaneously. Then, from the upper balcony, a slow clapping began. All eyes turned upward. A figure stood in the shadows, a man in an expensive black coat, leaning casually against the railing, as if giant mythological wolves crashed parties every day. He vaulted over the balcony, landing with impossible grace on the floor below. As he straightened, the light finally caught his face. He was stunning in an otherworldly way. Silver hair, despite appearing no older than 30. Eyes that shifted between gray and gold. Features that were almost too perfect to be real. Scars ran down the left side of his neck, disappearing beneath his collar. "Magnificent," he breathed, walking directly toward the ancient wolf with no fear whatsoever. "I have searched for you for 20 years. "Who the hell are you?" Darius demanded, finally finding his voice. The man didn't even glance at him. "I am Kyle Silvermane, High King of the Northern Territories, Keeper of the Old Ways. And right now, boy, you are standing in the presence of a goddess." He stopped 10 feet from the wolf, then did something that made the entire court gasp. He bowed, a full, formal bow of deepest respect. "Daughter of the first moon," Kale said, his voice reverent. "The Ancient One. We have waited for your return." The wolf's golden eyes fixed on him. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the massive creature began to shimmer. The light became blinding, forcing everyone to look away. When it faded, Mira stood where the wolf had been. She was naked, her skin glowing with residual power, strange markings swirling across her shoulders and down her spine. Her hair had changed from pale blonde to pure silver white, cascading down her back. Before anyone could react, Kale shrugged off his coat and wrapped it around her, pulling her against his chest. She collapsed into him, her legs giving out as the exhaustion hit. "I've got you," he murmured. "You're safe now. Put her down." Darius snarled, his alpha command lacing his voice. "That is pack property. She is nothing to you," Kale interrupted, his voice going deadly cold. "You rejected her. You threw her out to die. She is no longer Bloodstone Pack. Under the old laws, a banished wolf found by the High King becomes his ward and responsibility." "Old laws are dead," Darius snapped. "Modern pack structure is a perversion." Kale's voice boomed, and for the first time his own power flared out. It wasn't as overwhelming as the ancient wolf's, but it was still enough to make Darius take a step back. "The 5 courts exist because my ancestors allowed you to govern territories. But make no mistake, boy. Ultimate authority still rests with the crown. And I say she is mine now." Cassia stepped forward, her face twisted with spite. "She's a freak, a monster. She destroyed your ballroom, Alpha. She could kill us all." Kale finally looked at Cassia. His gaze was so cold she actually whimpered and retreated behind Darius. "If she wanted you dead," Kale said softly, You would be dead. She showed you mercy, more than you deserve. He turned back to the crowd, his arms still cradling the semi-conscious Mira. As High King, I am invoking my right to investigate the treatment of old blood within the 5 courts. If I find that this girl was abused, if I find even one scar that came from your negligence, Alpha Blackthorn, there will be consequences. From the shadows of the ruined doorway, figures began to appear. Elite warriors in tactical gear, their faces covered by masks bearing the ancient symbol of the crescent moon. The King's Guard. 12 of them formed a perimeter around Kael and Mira, weapons drawn. We are leaving, Kael announced. This court is hereby under investigation. I suggest you all pray that the girl's memories are kinder than I expect them to be. He carried Mira toward the shattered entrance. As they passed Darius, Kael paused. You rejected a goddess because she didn't look like the trophy you wanted, Kael said, his voice low enough that only Darius could hear. When she rises to her full power, when she takes her rightful place, you will spend the rest of your life regretting this moment. Darius watched them disappear into the night. His fists clenched so hard his claws drew blood from his palms. The milk and wildflower scent lingered in the air, but now it was mixed with something else. Ozone. Ancient power. It was the most intoxicating thing Darius had ever smelled. She was mine, he whispered to the empty ruined ballroom. I don't care what she is. She was mine. Mira woke to warmth. Real warmth. Not the constant chill of her storage closet. She was lying in a bed so soft it felt like a cloud, wrapped in sheets with a thread count she couldn't even fathom. For a moment, she thought she was dead. That she'd frozen in the snow, and this was whatever afterlife the moon goddess had planned for cursed Omegas. Then the memories hit. The rejection. The pain. The awakening. The wolf. She shot upright, gasping. Pain flared through her joints, the aftershock of a first transformation that should have killed her. Easy. A deep voice came from across the room. Your body is still healing. Shifting that dramatically takes a toll. Mira's head whipped toward the sound. The silver-haired man, Kael, sat in a leather armchair by a roaring fireplace. He was reading a leather-bound book, looking completely at ease. They were in a bedroom that was larger than the entire laundry room at Bloodstone. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a landscape of snow-capped mountains that Mira didn't recognize. The furniture was antique and expensive. Tapestries depicting ancient wolves covered the walls. Where am I? Mira croaked, her voice hoarse from screaming. The Northern Keep, Kael said, closing his book and setting it aside. My home, the seat of the High King. We're about 300 miles north of Bloodstone territory. Mira looked down. She was wearing a soft cotton nightgown that definitely wasn't hers. Did you? My healer dressed you, Kael said quickly, understanding the question. Alara. She's been monitoring you for the past day and a half. Day and a half? Mira's eyes widened. I've been unconscious for... Your body went through something unprecedented, Kael interrupted gently. You didn't just shift for the first time. You underwent a complete awakening. That kind of transformation. Most wolves would have died. The fact that you're conscious and coherent is remarkable. Kael stood and walked to a side table, pouring water from a crystal pitcher into a glass. He brought it to her, his movements slow and non-threatening. Drink, he said. Then we need to talk about what you are. Mira took the water with shaking hands. It was the cleanest, coldest, most delicious water she'd ever tasted. She drank the entire glass. I don't understand any of this, she whispered. I don't have a wolf. I've been tested 100 times. The pack doctors said I was defective. You're not defective. Kael sat on the edge of the bed, maintaining respectful distance. Mira, do you know anything about your parents? Your real parents? I'm an orphan. My mother died in childbirth. My father. I never knew who he was. The pack took me in as a charity case. That's what they told you, Kael said. It's a lie. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object. A locket, tarnished silver with intricate engravings. He opened it, revealing a faded photograph inside. A woman with silver white hair and golden eyes stared back at Mira. Next to her stood a man with dark hair and a gentle smile. Mira's breath caught. Who? That is Mira Ashford, your mother. And that is Marcus Ashford, your father. They didn't die when you were born, Mira. They died protecting you. Cale's expression darkened. 18 years ago, there was a purge. A faction called the Purity Order, extremist wolves who believed that the old bloodlines had become corrupted, that anyone carrying ancient wolf genes needed to be exterminated. They hunted down every remaining member of the first families. He paused, letting that sink in. Your mother was the last direct descendant of the Moon Blessed, Cale continued. The original wolves, the ones who could speak to the goddess herself. The Purity Order found your family when you were an infant. Your parents managed to get you to safety, gave you to a trusted friend in the Bloodstone Pack, then led the hunters away. Tears streamed down Mira's face. They died for me? They died knowing you would survive, Cale corrected gently. And they were right. The friend who took you in, a woman named Helena, she did everything she could to hide what you were. She fed you wolfsbane, in small doses, just enough to suppress your wolf without killing you. She spread rumors that you were cursed, defective, anything to make sure no one looked too closely. Why? Why would she do that? Because if the Purity Order had found out you existed, they would have killed everyone in that pack to get to you. Helena was trying to protect you and her people. Mira's hands clenched in the sheets. Then why did she let them treat me like dirt? Why did she let Cassia and the others? She died, Cale said softly. 3 years ago, rogue attack. After that, there was no one left who knew your secret. The wolfsbane they'd been putting in your food was just tradition at that point. The cursed girl needs her medicine. Everything made sense now. The weakness, the constant sickness, the inability to shift. They had been poisoning her. The rejection, Mira whispered. The pain burned it out of my system. That's why I could finally shift. Exactly, Cale confirmed. Your wolf had been trying to emerge for years, but the poison kept her locked down. When Darius rejected you, the agony of the broken bond catalyzed a purge. Your body expelled every last trace of wolfsbane, and your wolf, 18 years of rage and power built up, exploded free. Mira looked at her hands. They looked normal now, but she could feel it. The presence inside her, no longer caged. What am I? She asked. Cale's golden gray eyes met hers. You are what we call a primal. The first wolves, the ones who walked with the goddess. They weren't just animals with human intelligence. They were divine conduits. They could channel the raw power of the moon itself. He gestured to the tapestries on the walls. They depicted massive wolves, larger than normal, with glowing eyes and mystical symbols in their fur. The primals were the leaders of our kind for thousands of years, Cale explained. But as generations passed, the bloodline diluted. Most modern wolves have maybe a fraction of a percent of primal blood. You? He smiled. You're pure, first generation, the first true primal born in over 500 years. Why didn't the Purity Order find me? If I'm so special? Because you're not just a primal, Mira. You're something even rarer. Cale stood and walked to a bookshelf, pulling down an ancient tome. He flipped through pages covered in a language Mira couldn't read. There's a prophecy, he said, written by the first moon priestess, 3,000 years ago. It speaks of the Ancient One, a primal who would be born in an age of corruption and darkness, who would either unite our fractured kind or bring about their extinction. He showed her an illustration, a wolf made of starlight, standing before a kneeling court. The Ancient One would be marked by white fur, golden eyes, and the ability to command any wolf, regardless of rank or bloodline. They would be immune to the normal hierarchy. Alpha, Beta, Omega, all those classifications? Cale shook his head. They mean nothing to you. You stand outside them entirely. Mira felt dizzy. That's why they all fell to their knees. Exactly. You didn't consciously command them. Your mere presence demands submission. It's not cruelty, it's biology. You're apex above apex. A thought struck Mira. You didn't kneel. Cale smiled. I'm a descendant of the Silver Moon line. We were the guardians of the Primals, bred specifically to withstand their aura so we could serve without being overwhelmed. It's why I recognized you immediately. I've spent my entire life searching for the Ancient One. Why? Because the prophecy also says that the Ancient One would take a mate who would rule beside her. Together they would either save our kind or end it. Mira's stomach dropped. I already have a mate, had a mate, Darius. Broke the bond, Kale finished. In the old days, that would be unforgivable. But modern laws are more flexible. The bond can be reformed if both parties agree within a year. But there's something you need to understand, Mira. He sat back down, his expression serious. The mate bond is powerful, yes, but for a primal, it's not the final word. Your wolf is strong enough to override fate if she chooses. You could form a bond with someone else, if you wanted. If your wolf accepted them. Heat crept up Mira's cheeks. Are you saying? I'm saying you have choices now, Kale said carefully. Darius rejected you based on who he thought you were. Cassia and her cronies tortured you because they thought you were weak. The entire Bloodstone Pack treated you like garbage because they believed you were worthless. His eyes flashed gold. But now they know the truth. And trust me, Mira, they will come crawling back. Darius will claim it was all a misunderstanding. Cassia will beg for forgiveness. They'll all kneel and scrape and promise they always believed in you. What do I do? Mira whispered. Kale stood. First, you train. Your wolf is powerful, but you don't know how to control her yet. If you lose control in a populated area, you could kill hundreds without meaning to. I can teach you. My people have techniques passed down specifically for primal wolves. And then you decide. Do you want revenge? Do you want to rule? Do you want to walk away from all of it and live in peace? Kale smiled. For the first time in your life, Mira Ashford, the choice is entirely yours. A knock at the door interrupted them. Come, Kale called. A woman entered, elderly, but sharp-eyed, wearing robes marked with lunar symbols. My king, there's a situation. The Bloodstone Pack has surrounded our southern border. Alpha Blackthorn is demanding an audience. Kale's jaw tightened. How many? 50 warriors. Darius himself is at the head. He's claiming we kidnapped his Luna. Silence filled the room. Then Mira laughed. It was a harsh, broken sound that made both Kale and the elderly woman flinch. His Luna, Mira repeated. I'm his Luna now, after he threw me into the snow and banished me. She looked at Kale. What happens if I refuse to see him? We send him away, Kale said simply. You're under my protection. He can't touch you here. Mira thought about it. Thought about hiding in this beautiful keep, safe and warm, while Darius raged impotently outside. It was tempting. But then, she remembered Cassia's hand knocking the water basin over, Darius's ice-blue eyes looking at her with disgust, the guards throwing her into the snow. No, Mira said, standing up. Her legs were shaky but held. Let him in. I want him to see what he threw away. Kale's smile was sharp and approving. As you wish, but Mira? You need clothes first. The throne room of the northern keep was carved directly into the mountain itself. Pillars of natural stone rose 50 feet to a vaulted ceiling, embedded with crystals that glowed with their own inner light. At the far end sat 2 thrones, one of obsidian and one of white marble. Kale sat in the obsidian throne, looking every inch the High King. Mira stood beside the white marble one, refusing to sit despite Kale's offer. She wore a gown his staff had provided, deep sapphire blue that brought out the violet undertones in her new golden eyes. Her silver-white hair was braided into an intricate crown. She looked like royalty. She didn't feel like it. Mostly, she felt nauseous. You don't have to do this, Kale murmured. We can send him away. I need to, Mira said. I need to see his face. The massive ironwood doors opened. Darius Blackthorn strode in, flanked by 6 of his best warriors. He wore combat gear, not formal clothes, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. His ice-blue eyes scanned the room, then locked onto Mira. He froze mid-step. Mira watched his pupils dilate, watched his nostrils flare as he caught her scent. The bond was broken, but residual attraction remained, especially now that she was no longer suppressed. Mira, Darius breathed. That's close enough, Blackthorn, Kale said coldly. State your business. Darius dragged his eyes away from Mira with visible effort. High King, I've come to retrieve my mate. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. Your ex-mate, Kale corrected. You rejected her, banished her, threw her into the snow to die. Those aren't misunderstandings. Those are choices. I didn't know. Darius's voice rose, frustration bleeding through. I didn't know what she was. If I had known she was a primal, if I had known. You would have what? Mira's voice cut through the room like a blade. Treated me with basic decency? Not let your pack torture me for 18 years? Darius flinched. They didn't. Don't you dare! Mira stepped forward, and immediately Darius's warriors dropped to their knees, overwhelmed by her aura. Even Darius swayed, fighting the instinct to submit. Don't you dare rewrite history, now that I'm valuable. Mira, please. Darius took a step toward her. I know I made a mistake. The rejection. It was pride. Stupidity. But we can fix this. The bond. It can be reformed within a year. We can perform the ceremony, and... And what? Mira demanded. We live happily ever after? You parade me around like a trophy to make up for the humiliation of rejecting me? No, Darius ran a hand through his dark hair, looking genuinely distressed. I can't stop thinking about you. Your scent, it's everywhere. I can't sleep. I can't eat. My wolf is going insane. That's not love, Kale interjected. That's obsession. That's your wolf realizing you threw away a prize and wanting it back. This isn't your business, Silvermane, Darius snarled. It became my business when you threw her beyond your borders. Kale shot back. Under old law, she's mine now. My ward, my responsibility. And I won't hand her back to a pack that poisoned and abused her. Poisoned? Darius looked confused. Wolfsbane, Mira said. In my food. Every single day for 18 years. That's why I couldn't shift. That's why I was weak. Someone in your pack was suppressing my wolf to protect me from the purity order. But after she died, you all just kept doing it because you thought I was cursed. The color drained from Darius's face. I didn't know. You didn't care to know, Mira corrected. I was beneath your notice, just another Omega to clean your floors. Silence stretched between them. Then Darius dropped to one knee. His warriors gasped. An Alpha never knelt, not even to the High King. You're right, Darius said, his voice raw. I was arrogant, blind. I treated you like dirt because I could. Because society said you were worthless. He looked up at her, and there was genuine anguish in his ice-blue eyes. But I'm begging you, Mira. Give me a chance to make it right. Let me prove that I can be the mate you deserve. Mira felt something crack in her chest. This was what the old her had wanted. Darius on his knees, begging for her attention. But the old her was dead. No, she said simply. Darius's face crumbled. Mira, you don't love me, Darius. You love what I am. The power, the prestige, and maybe you feel guilty. But that's not enough. She stepped closer, forcing him to tilt his head back to maintain eye contact. You had 18 years to see me, to defend me when Cassia hurt me, to question why I was so weak. You had 1,000 chances to be better. She crouched down, meeting him at eye level. You didn't take any of them, she whispered. So no, I won't give you another. She stood and walked back to Kael's side. Darius remained kneeling, looking shattered. Leave, Kael commanded, and be grateful I'm letting you leave at all. If Mira wanted, she could have your pack absorbed into the crown. She could have you stripped of your title. She's showing you mercy you don't deserve. Darius stood slowly. His warriors rose as well, all of them keeping their eyes downcast in Mira's presence. This isn't over, Darius said, but there was no heat in it, just exhausted defeat. I'll find a way to fix this. There's nothing to fix, Mira said. We're done. Go home, Darius. He left without another word, his warriors following. The moment the doors closed, Mira's legs gave out. Kale caught her before she hit the floor. "That was incredible," he murmured, helping her to the white marble throne. "You stood up to an alpha who's been terrorizing you for years. I feel like I'm going to throw up," Mira admitted. "That's normal. The adrenaline is crashing." Kale knelt in front of her, his golden gray eyes concerned. "But you did it, Mira. You took your power back." Before Mira could respond, a different sensation washed over her. Heat, sudden and overwhelming, bloomed in her lower belly. Her skin flushed, and a scent exploded from her pores, sweet and intoxicating. Kale's pupils blew wide. He jerked backward, putting distance between them. "No," he breathed. "Not now." "What's happening?" Mira gasped, clutching the arms of the throne. Every nerve ending was on fire. "Your heat," Kale said through gritted teeth. "The confrontation, the stress, it triggered your first cycle." He tapped an earpiece. "Alara, I need you in the throne room now. And bring suppressants." But the damage was already done. Mira's scent was flooding through the keep's ventilation system. Outside, in the training yard, 50 of Kale's warriors stopped mid-exercise, their heads snapping toward the keep, their eyes glazed over with lust. In the southern forest, Darius and his men were halfway back to Bloodstone territory when the wind shifted. Darius stopped dead, his entire body going rigid as Mira's heat scent reached him. "Alpha?" one of his warriors asked. Darius didn't respond. He turned around and started running back toward the keep, his wolf fully in control. Inside the throne room, Kale was fighting a losing battle. His instincts were screaming at him to claim her, to mark her, to make her his. "Mira," he growled, "I need you to go to your room. Lock the door. Don't let anyone in until Alara gives you the suppressants." "Kale," Mira whimpered. The heat was agonizing. Her body was demanding a mate, and the only person close enough was Flexion. "Don't," Kale warned, seeing the look in her eyes. "I won't take advantage of you like this. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I ever have," Mira said. She stood, crossing the distance between them. "I choose you, Kale. Not because of the heat. Because you're the only one who's seen me as more than a broken omega or a powerful prize." "Mira." She kissed him. For a moment, Kyle froze. Then his control shattered. He hauled her against him, kissing her back with a hunger that matched her own. Outside, alarms began to wail. "Sir," a guard's voice crackled over the earpiece. "We have incoming. Blackthorn's forces are returning, and they're not alone. Unknown wolves approaching from the east. They're wearing..." The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Kale pulled back, his breathing ragged. "We're under attack." An explosion rocked the keep. Stone dust rained from the ceiling. Through the shattered doors, Mira could see figures pouring into the courtyard. Wolves in tactical gear, wearing masks marked with a red X. "The Purity Order," Kale breathed. "They found you." Chaos erupted. Kale's warriors engaged the masked attackers in the courtyard, the clash of steel and snarls of wolves echoing through the mountain valley. More explosions rocked the keep, strategic strikes designed to breach the walls. Kyle grabbed Mira's hand, pulling her toward a hidden passage behind the thrones. "There's a safe room 3 levels down. Reinforced stone, protection runes. They won't be able to." "No," Mira pulled free. "I'm not hiding anymore." "Mira, you don't know how to fight. You can barely control your wolf. Then I'll learn fast." Mira's eyes flashed gold. "These people killed my parents. They've been hunting my bloodline for 18 years. I'm done running." Outside, a familiar howl cut through the chaos. "Darius, great," Kale muttered, because this wasn't complicated enough. They emerged into the courtyard to find absolute carnage. Kyle's warriors, the King's Guard, were some of the best fighters on the continent, but they were outnumbered 3-1. The Purity Order had brought an army, and there, fighting alongside Kale's men, was Darius and his Bloodstone warriors. They'd thrown aside their retreat and joined the battle. A massive wolf in Purity Order colors lunged at Mira. She didn't think. She thrust her hand forward, and white lightning arced from her fingertips, sending the attacker flying backward to slam into the stone wall with bone-breaking force. "Okay," Kale said, staring at her. "That's new." Mira stared at her hands. "How did I—" "Primal magic," Kale explained quickly, decapitating an attacker who got too close. "You can channel the moon's power directly, but it'll drain you fast if you're not careful." A blade whistled through the air toward Mira's throat. Darius appeared from nowhere, catching the weapon with his bare hand. Blood poured from his palm as he crushed the blade, then tore out the attacker's throat. "Stay behind me," Darius commanded. "I'm not a helpless Omega anymore," Mira shot back, hitting another attacker with lightning. "I noticed." Darius grinned, feral and bloody. "Doesn't mean I'm letting them touch you." From the eastern wall, a sound cut through the battle. A horn, deep and resonant. Everyone froze. A figure appeared on the wall, flanked by a dozen heavily armed guards. He was tall, wearing robes covered in religious symbols, his face hidden behind a silver mask. "Abomination!" His voice boomed, magically amplified. "Daughter of corruption! You have defiled this world long enough, Prophet Ezekiel," Kale spat, the leader of the Purity Order. "Surrender the Ancient One," Ezekiel commanded, "and the rest of you may live. She is the cancer that must be cut out to save our species." "Over my dead body," Darius snarled. "That can be arranged, fallen Alpha." Ezekiel raised his hand. The guards beside him raised weapons, not swords, but staffs, topped with pulsing purple gems. "Sonic emitters." Kale's face went white. "Everyone cover your screech." The sound was unholy, a frequency designed specifically to incapacitate werewolf hearing. Every wolf in the courtyard dropped, clutching their heads as blood poured from their ears. Mira fell to her knees, her vision going white with pain. Pathetic. Ezekiel descended from the wall, walking through the writhing bodies. The great Ancient One, brought low by simple technology. He stood over Mira, producing a silver blade from his robes. "Your parents begged too, promised me anything if I'd spare you. I should have accepted their offer, taken you as an infant, would have saved us all a lot of trouble." Through the agony, Mira felt rage building. Not her rage, her wolf's rage. "No more kneeling," the ancient voice thundered in her mind. Mira looked up, and her eyes were pure gold, glowing like twin suns. The sonic emitters shattered. The sudden silence was deafening. Ezekiel stumbled backward. "Impossible. Those emitters can—" Mira stood. The air around her shimmered with heat. "You killed my parents. I cleansed the world of monsters." Ezekiel raised his blade. "And now I'll finish." Mira didn't let him finish. She transformed, but not fully. Her body shifted into something between human and wolf. A hybrid form that shouldn't be possible. Silver fur covered her arms and legs, claws extended from her fingertips, her face elongated into a muzzle filled with fangs. She was beautiful and terrifying. Ezekiel thrust his blade at her heart. Mira caught it with one clawed hand. The silver burned her palm, but she didn't let go. She crushed the blade into powder. "My turn," she growled. What happened next would be spoken of in whispers for generations. Mira didn't just fight. She danced through the remaining Purity Order forces like a force of nature. Lightning arced from her fingertips, each strike perfectly placed. She moved faster than should be possible, her hybrid form giving her strength and speed beyond any normal wolf. And everywhere she stepped, ancient runes glowed on the ground, symbols that had been carved into the keep's foundation 3,000 years ago, waiting for the Ancient One to activate them. Barriers of pure moonlight erupted, cutting off escape routes. Vines of silver energy wrapped around attackers, holding them in place. Within minutes, the Purity Order's army was defeated. Survivors dropped their weapons, kneeling in terror before the goddess they'd tried to kill. Mira stood in the center of the courtyard, her hybrid form still active, breathing heavily, her golden eyes fixed on Ezekiel, who was pinned beneath one of the silver vine traps. She walked to him slowly. Around her, wolves were rising, Kale's warriors, Darius's pack, even the enemies she'd spared. All of them knelt as she passed. Mira looked down at Ezekiel. His silver mask had cracked, revealing a scarred face twisted with hatred and fear. "Please," he whispered. "Mercy. You showed my parents no mercy," Mira said. "You've spent 18 years hunting children. Anyone with primal blood." She raised her clawed hand. "Wait," a voice called out. Kale, limping but alive, approached. "Mira, you don't have to kill him. You're better than they are." Mira looked at Kale, then at Darius, who was also watching her with bloody but hopeful eyes. She lowered her hand. "You're right," she said. "I'm better than they are." She turned back to Ezekiel. "You and your followers will stand trial before the 5 courts. Your crimes will be made public, and you'll spend the rest of your lives in prison, knowing that the monster you tried to exterminate is the reason you're still breathing." Relief flooded Ezekiel's face. "But if you ever threaten my kind again..." Mira leaned down, letting him see every fang. "I won't be merciful twice." She straightened, shifting back to human form. Kael immediately draped a cloak around her. The courtyard was silent, except for the crackle of dying fires and the moans of the wounded. Then, slowly, one of Kael's warriors began to clap. Then another. Then Darius's wolves joined in. Within seconds, the entire courtyard was erupting in cheers. Mira looked around at the kneeling wolves, at Kael smiling at her with pride, at Darius watching her with awe and regret. "What happens now?" she asked Kael quietly. "Now," Kael said, "you decide what kind of queen you want to be." The grand amphitheater had been carved into a mountain thousands of years ago by the first Primals. It could hold 10,000 wolves, and today, it was filled to capacity. Representatives from all 5 courts were present: the Northern Territories, the Bloodstone Pack, the Eastern Coalition, the Southern Isles, and the Western Wilds. Alphas, betas, elders, warriors, all gathered for an event that hadn't occurred in 5 centuries: the coronation of a primal queen. Mira stood in a preparation chamber, looking at her reflection. She wore a gown of white silk that seemed to glow with inner light. Her silver-white hair was left loose, cascading down her back. A crown of woven moonstone and diamonds rested on her brow. She looked like a goddess. She felt like a girl who used to scrub toilets. "You ready?" Kael appeared in the doorway, wearing formal regalia. As High King, he would be the one to perform the ceremony. "No," Mira admitted. "Kael, I don't know how to rule. I don't know the first thing about politics or..." "You'll learn," Kael interrupted gently. "And you won't be alone. That's what advisors are for. That's what I'm for." Over the past 3 months, their relationship had evolved. The heat had passed, giving them time to actually get to know each other without biological imperatives clouding things. Mira had discovered that Kael was patient, kind, and fiercely protective. He'd spent every day training her, teaching her to control her power, to use it precisely instead of just overwhelming force. And somewhere along the way, she'd fallen in love with him. Not because of fate. Not because of a bond. Because of choice. "There's someone here to see you," Kael said, stepping aside. Cassia Monroe entered the chamber. She looked different. Gone were the designer clothes and arrogant posture. She wore a simple servant's uniform, her hair pulled back in a practical bun. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. "Your Majesty." Cassia dropped into a deep curtsy, her voice shaking. I came to beg your forgiveness." Mira studied her former tormentor. "What happened to you? After the battle, after everyone learned the truth about what we did to you," Cassia's voice broke. "My father was stripped of his beta position. Our family lost everything. I've been working in the Bloodstone kitchens, trying to earn back some shred of respect." She looked up, tears streaming down her face. "I was horrible to you, cruel. I have no excuse except that I could be, and no one stopped me. I'm sorry. I know it's not enough, but I'm so sorry." Mira was quiet for a long moment. "I forgive you," she said finally. Cassia's eyes widened in shock. "But I don't forget," Mira continued. "You're working in those kitchens? Good. Keep working. Spend the next few years learning what it's like to be at the bottom. Maybe it'll make you a better person. I will, Cassia promised. Thank you. Thank you for not— You can go, Mira said, not unkindly. Cassia left, still crying. That was generous, Kale observed. She was a bully, not a murderer, Mira said. And honestly, I don't have the energy to hate her anymore. I'd rather focus on the future. Speaking of which, Kale glanced at his watch. It's time. They walked together through the ancient corridors of the amphitheater, emerging onto a platform that overlooked the massive crowd. The roar that greeted them was deafening. Mira spotted Darius in the crowd, sitting with his pack. He looked thinner, older somehow. When their eyes met, he bowed his head in acknowledgement. There was no animosity there anymore, just mutual respect and a shared history that neither could change. Kyle raised his hands, and the crowd fell silent. 3,000 years ago, he began, his voice carrying through the amphitheater. The first Primals walked among us. They were our leaders, our protectors, our connection to the divine. But time and war and greed took them from us, until we thought the age of Primals had ended forever. He turned to Mira, extending his hand. We were wrong. Mira took his hand, stepping forward to the edge of the platform. I present to you, Mira Ashford, Kale's voice boomed, daughter of Lyanna and Marcus Ashford, last of the moon-blessed line. The Ancient One returned to us in our darkest hour. The crowd erupted in cheers. And today, Kale continued, by the authority vested in me as High King of the Northern Territories, and with the blessing of the 5 courts, I name her Queen of the Primals, protector of the old ways, keeper of the sacred laws. He lifted the moonstone crown from her head, holding it high for all to see, then placed it back with formal ceremony. All hail, Queen Mira! All hail, Queen Mira! The crowd thundered back. And then, as one, 10,000 wolves dropped to their knees. Mira looked out at the sea of bowed heads, at the courts that had once ignored her existence, now pledging their loyalty. She felt Kyle's hand slip into hers, grounding her. What do I say? She whispered to him. Whatever your heart tells you, he whispered back. Mira took a deep breath. Rise, she called out. The crowd stood. I know what it's like to be powerless, to be dismissed, to be told you're worthless. Her voice grew stronger. I spent 18 years on my knees, scrubbing floors, being beaten and starved and poisoned. I know what the bottom looks like. The amphitheater was completely silent. So here's my promise to you, Mira continued. I won't rule from a place of vengeance. I won't punish those who didn't know better, but I also won't tolerate cruelty. I won't allow the strong to prey on the weak without consequence. Every wolf, regardless of rank or bloodline, deserves dignity. She looked directly at Darius. I was rejected, banished, left to die. But I survived. I rose. And now I stand before you, not as the broken Omega they tried to destroy, but as the queen they never imagined I could be. Applause thundered through the amphitheater, so loud it shook the ancient stones. Kale leaned close. Well said, my queen. Our queen. Mira corrected. I can't do this alone. You won't have to. Kale's eyes held a question. Mira, I know this is fast. I know we've only known each other for 3 months. But my wolf, he recognized you the moment I saw you. Not as a prize, as a partner. He dropped to one knee before her, before the entire assembly. Will you take me as your king consort, your mate? Not because of prophecy or politics, but because I love you. Mira felt tears streaming down her face. Yes, she said, pulling him up and kissing him in front of 10,000 witnesses. The crowd went absolutely wild. As the sun set over the amphitheater, turning the sky purple and gold, Mira stood with Kale on the highest balcony of the ancient structure. Below, the celebration continued, music and laughter echoing through the mountains. Do you think they'll tell stories about this? Mira asked, leaning against Kale's chest. Oh, definitely. Kale chuckled. The cursed Omega who became a queen. The broken girl who made the 5 courts kneel. It'll be legend. Good, Mira said fiercely. Let them tell it. Let every Omega who feels powerless hear it. Let every wolf who's been dismissed and degraded know that their story doesn't end with other people's cruelty. She looked up at the emerging stars. I was Mira Ashford, the pack runt. The girl who scrubbed floors and ate scraps and dreamed of being seen. She smiled. Now I'm Mira Ashford, queen of the Primals, and I'm just getting started. The end. And there you have it, friends. From basement laundry rooms to moonstone crowns. From broken Omega to ancient goddess. Mira's journey proves that your value isn't determined by how others treat you. It's determined by how you rise when they try to keep you down. What did you think? Did Darius deserve a chance at redemption, or was his ending fitting? And honestly, Team Kale or Team Darius? Let me know in the comments. If you loved this story and want more werewolf romances, rejected mate tales, and underdog to queen transformations, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. We upload fresh stories every week. Thanks for listening to this wild ride. Until next time, remember, never let anyone tell you you're broken. You might just be a goddess waiting to wake up.